Alright everyone, it's time for the Occult, video number 390, about tales of animals tracking down their owners. So you've probably heard that story, and you hear one in the news probably about every year. The family loses their dog, wanders off, and then 5 years later, after they've already moved to the other side of the continent or something like that, their dog inexplicably shows back up on their front porch. Or they left the animal behind, and this is sometimes kind of mysterious because it's like, if you love Fluffy so much and have that great a bond with Fluffy, why did you leave Fluffy behind? So for some odd reason, they potentially abandoned the animal, but it still tracked him down 500 miles or something like that. I'm interested in the paranormal and into all sorts of research into things like the potential link between two people or a person and an animal. In some cases, that research has led to some bizarre results, such as the fact that in some instances it does appear that the thoughts of a person can impact the behavior of their pet, although that could be a fluke. And so most of this is not peer-reviewed, and sometimes you don't really have the full notation of these experiments. But I've got an open mind. For example, I am well aware of the fact that I have a bond with this kitty. She reminds me of this on a regular basis by squishing into me at night and not leaving me alone, poking me in the face, and mainly I assume that the bond is mainly related to the fact that I've got opposable thumbs, so it's easy for me to open cat food containers. I think that it works pretty well. I get to pet a warm, fuzzy creature, and she gets a snack. But I don't think that if I were to move to the other side of the Netherlands, for example, that her scent capabilities would make it possible for her to follow me that entire distance and find me. In reality, what I think we're mainly seeing with these tales is that coincidences happen, and so there are two basic forms. Family has moved across town and the pet managed to follow them. That's fully believable because it can follow their scent. When you're talking about them showing up 2 years later or something like that, it's not possible that the animal managed to locate those individuals. Now, in very rare cases, you can say a coincidence occurred. That is, it is the same animal. It wasn't tracking anyone, though. It simply ended up wandering around until it found the right location by default. That's a possibility. And the more likely possibility is that oftentimes two animals look very similar. So the fact is that the family didn't really want Fluffy anymore. The parents were not interested in Fluffy the hound dog. They decided to leave Fluffy with a relative or something. But their kids were very sad, but they weren't going to bring Fluffy back. 2 years later, though, a dog that looks very much like Fluffy happens to show up. And it's a happy animal, barking and wiggling its tail around and so forth, and so the animal says, oh, fuck, Fluffy's back. But in reality, they know it's not Fluffy. One call to that neighbor that you left Fluffy with will confirm that. But for the kids' sake, you don't want to tell them it's not actually Fluffy because you see how happy they are all of a sudden. Two animals can look very, very similar. There's that one fun meme. I don't know if it's photoshopped or if it's actually legit. And a dude was like, oh, my cat ran away. And then it came back. And then it came back again. So now I have two cats. And the idea was the two cats look almost identical, but these two cats had separately shown up and he had adopted them. I don't know if that's true or if it's the same cat and just he took two pictures of it and combined them together. It doesn't really matter, though. It's feasible. It shows basically what I'm talking about, which is that two animals can look effectively identical. Again, the family has lost its animal. The animal's probably dead, or someone else has adopted it. Hopefully, maybe it's living a happy life. They've moved or something, but then an animal shows up that pretty much fits the bill. That family is going to want that animal to be the same one they lost if they cared about it. And again, of course, there may be a disconnect within the family that also compensates for it. I think that explains about 99% of those cases. I don't think that it has to do with some magical psychic link between pet and owner. I don't think that it has to do with some hitherto unknown tracking capability of animals, because, we don't see that really in nature. Animals are capable of tracking on a level, well, some of them, of course, on a level that humans really can't. They have an advanced olfactory sense, for example. Some animals have exceptionally keen skills with eyesight and stuff. Also, some animals, certain birds and insects and so forth, are capable of passively monitoring electromagnetic fields to navigate. It's quite fascinating. But none of that would be impacted by a specific individual person who's at a distance. For example, Fluffy's trying to track down his owners. Fluffy may get a scent if Fluffy departs very quickly. That scent is definitely going to be lost if that family didn't decide to walk to their location just ahead of Fluffy. If they got into a car, the scent is going to be lost at the point that they got into the car. A faint whiff every now and again, briefly, but if they're going 500 miles, there's no possible way in which Fluffy can possibly keep up in order to track them. It's not physically possible. It doesn't matter how keen the sense of smell is. You're talking about taking the most able hound dog in the world and amplifying its capabilities like 1,000 times before you would have even the slightest chance of that happening. So that's clearly not how it's working. It's not olfactory. Again, the type of geolocation and abilities related to a geomagnetic field or something wouldn't really be impacted by a single person at a distance. Even if they were just across the room, it wouldn't have a big impact on magnetic fields, let alone 500 miles away. So it's not that. They can't see the person, so it's not the sight that's involved. They can't hear them, so it's not that. And we've found no particular compelling evidence of a psychic link that would allow the animal to magically home in on a person. That's not even what the paranormal studies into the topic are. Not really paranormal, but we'll use the politically correct term pseudoscientific studies into the field pertain to. It doesn't pertain to homing in or knowing where the person is. It has to do with the fact that the animal and the person, if they're only removed from one another by a single wall, so we're not talking about any great distance, that in some cases the behavior of the human and the pet can interact with one another. It's like spooky action at a distance. That does not appear to have anything to do with what we're talking about when we're talking about an animal tracking its owner 1,000 miles. It's apples to oranges, even within the realm of the paranormal. And so I don't really believe in it. I think that Fluffy, who magically showed up 2 years later, is not actually Fluffy. I think that it's a dog or a cat or whatever that looks very similar. I would know. This happens all the time, but only with certain types of animals. Never seems to happen with your pet goat. I've never heard of it happening with an iguana or anything like that. I guess the idea is they can't move fast enough to get there before their lifespan exhausts or something like that. Animals don't track down their owners at great distances. I'm sure there will be at least a couple of people in the comments who have some sort of tale to tell where that actually happened. Where it happened to them or a family member or a close friend or something. So they'll vouch for it, by God. I would say that, no. Why does this never occur with animals that have like a tracking system on them? Like an RFID implant, again, unless it's a relatively short distance. 50 miles would be believable. Yeah, if the animal headed out immediately, the hound could possibly track people 50 miles. But after 2 years and 10 bajillion miles? I don't think so. I know. There's no method by which that can actually occur. It pays sometimes to be a skeptic with regards to topics and subjugated broadly to the occult and the unknown. Anyway, it's almost Halloween, so I figured I'd throw in the 390th occult video because, it's kind of cool. That's about all. Peace out.